Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Gossips 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The aftermath of the latest shocking twist that has turned the Forrester mansion and the Finnegan family upside down. The scene erupts with staggering emotional weight as John Finnegan, normally the level-headed, compassionate healer who has been a steady rock for his wife Steffi Forrester and their children, finally reaches the end of his emotional tether, and breaks down in a way that no one thought possible, shouting in a thunderous voice that reverberates through the walls, "I won't forgive you, MOM," as he grabs his phone with trembling hands, his voice raw with betrayal and grief, and dials the police, demanding that they immediately come to arrest both Lee Finnegan and Luna Nozawa, a choice that instantly sends shockwaves across the entire canvas of families linked to this soap opera legacy. Because in that one moment Finn is not only rejecting the woman who raised him, but also the young woman who came into his life claiming to be his daughter. A daughter who had once awakened paternal instincts he never knew he had. A daughter who, despite her dangerous obsession and erratic spirals, had once filled him with a strange kind of pride that he could create a bond even out of chaos. Yet that bond is now irreparably fractured, replaced with bitter rage and righteous fury. Because Finn has pieced together the manipulations, the cover-ups, and the dangerous lies that both Lee and Luna have engaged in. Lee in her cold and clinical way, deciding to play God by tampering with Luna's medical care, faking diagnoses, covering up mistakes, and even keeping secrets from Finn about Sheila Carter's role in Luna's survival. And Luna herself, who spiraled into obsession with Finn and manipulated situations to wedge herself between him and Steffi, culminating in violent confrontations that left blood on the floors of their homes, hospital corridors filled with life and death battles, and Finn watching helplessly as people he cared for were gunned down or broken by betrayal. And so when Finn makes that call, when he angrily demands that the police take his own mother and his own daughter away in handcuffs, the atmosphere of the room shifts into something almost apocalyptic, with Steffi's eyes widening in both horror and a strange glimmer of vindication. Because while she never wanted Finn to suffer this kind of betrayal, part of her cannot help but feel a quiet, devastating sense of relief that at last Finn has chosen her. At last Finn has cut ties with the toxic pull of Lee's control and Luna's dangerous instability, and for once placed Steffi and their children at the center of his loyalty. Yet her heart also aches for Finn, because this decision is not made lightly. It is the cry of a man ripped apart from the inside. A man whose entire sense of identity as a doctor, a husband, and a father has been ripped away by the two women he trusted most in different ways, and the memory of his anguished face as he screamed, "I won't forgive you," will haunt everyone present, especially Lee, whose normally icy composure cracks for the first time in years as she falls to her knees, whispering through tears that she did everything for him, that she fought to protect him from Sheila's poison, from Luna's destructiveness, from a world that never deserved his purity. But Finn cannot hear it anymore. The words are drowned out by years of suppressed anger that he once excused as discipline, that he once justified as motherly protection, now revealed to be control, domination, and a willingness to destroy anyone in her path, even him, even his children, even Steffi and Luna. On the other side of the room, her mascara streaked down her face, shaking uncontrollably, cries out for Finn to believe her, to remember the good moments, the laughter they shared when they first believed they were father and daughter, her voice breaking as she pleads that she only wanted to be loved, that she only wanted him to see her as worthy. But Finn, his face stone, tells her she crossed the line the moment she pointed a gun at Steffi, the moment she made him choose between the family he built and the chaos she dragged into his life. And with every syllable, Luna feels the rejection crush her chest like 1,000 weights, knowing that no matter what excuses she can offer, no matter how much she sobs that she was influenced, drugged, manipulated, pressured by Lee or Poppy or even Sheila, the truth is that Finn has already severed the connection, and as the sound of approaching sirens grows louder outside, the walls of the Forrester estate closing in on the broken family inside, Steffi slowly walks to Finn's side, placing a trembling but firm hand on his arm, her touch anchoring him in this storm, silently telling him she supports him even as her own heart aches for the enormity of the loss he has inflicted on himself, because calling the police on his own blood is not an act of justice alone. It is an act of self-destruction, And yet, perhaps she realizes, it is also an act of liberation, freeing them from the cycle of lies and control that has defined Finn's relationship with Lee since childhood, and severing the toxic thread that Luna wrapped around their marriage like a suffocating vine. And as the police burst in, handcuffing a sobbing Luna and a defiant but broken Lee, Finn's last words to them before they are dragged away echo like a gavel strike. "You made me choose, and I chose my family." A declaration that both shatters and rebuilds him in the same breath, setting the stage for weeks of emotional fallout, because now Finn must live with the aftermath of destroying the two most complicated relationships of his life, Lee sitting in a cold cell wondering if she truly lost her son forever, Luna screaming in her holding cell that she is still his daughter no matter what, and Steffi holding her husband as he crumbles in private, knowing that the battle may be over, but the war for his soul has only just begun. And as the camera pans out on the fractured Finnegan-Forrester family, the haunting reality sets in that forgiveness may never come, trust may never be rebuilt, and yet from the ashes of betrayal, a new chapter is forced to begin, one where Finn must reckon with who he is without the chains of his mother's control and the distractions of his daughter's chaos, and whether he can truly live with the decision that broke his family apart forever. The air inside the Forrester estate was suffocating. After Finn's raw explosion, his thunderous voice still ringing in the ears of everyone present. "I won't forgive you, MOM." A line so brutally final that it seemed to crack not only Lee's iron mask of control, but also the very foundation of the Finnegan family. And as he clutched the phone in his hand, calling the police with a trembling fury, his chest rising and falling like a man standing on the edge of collapse, it became clear that this was not a moment of rash impulse but a culmination of years of silenced resentment, suppressed anger, and swallowed pain that Finn had hidden beneath his identity as the good son, the dedicated doctor, the loyal husband. But in this one moment, that facade shattered, revealing the raw wound of a man betrayed too many times by those who should have protected him. And as Lee sank to her knees, hands shaking, whispering through cracked lips that she only did what was necessary, that everything she ever did was for him, for his future, for his survival, Finn's jaw locked with a grim resolve, his eyes glistening with unshed tears that refused to fall, because to shed them would mean he still cared, and he could not allow himself that weakness anymore. Not after watching Lee choose manipulation over love, control over honesty, destruction over compassion, and Luna, sweet, fragile, broken, and yet dangerously unhinged Luna, cried out with a desperate rasp that she was his daughter, that he could not abandon her like this, that she only wanted his love, her hands reaching out as though she could physically grab back the connection she had shattered, but Finn recoiled as though her touch would burn him, his voice like stone as he told her that a daughter does not hold a gun to her stepmother's head, does not stalk her father with an obsession, does not leave a trail of violence and chaos in her wake. And Luna's sobs grew louder as the sound of sirens pierced the silence outside, flashing red and blue lights bouncing off the mansion's windows like the visual manifestation of the family's implosion, Steffi holding her breath as she placed her hand on Finn's back, feeling the tremors of rage and grief coursing through him. And though she wanted to tell him he was doing the right thing, that he was finally cutting ties with the people who threatened their marriage, her throat closed with a bittersweet ache, because she knew this choice, while necessary, was also destroying something fundamental in him. The boy who once craved his mother's approval, the man who longed to embrace his daughter, all of it had just died inside him. And when the police entered, their voices crisp and authoritative, ordering Lee and Luna to stand, cuffing Lee's wrists with a clink of cold metal that reverberated like a death knell, she glared at Steffi with a venom that belied her tears, hissing that Steffi had poisoned her son against her, that this was the Forrester influence corrupting him. And Steffi, though tempted to fire back, stayed silent, holding on to Finn, recognizing that her silence was more powerful than any words, while Luna screamed Finn's name as she was dragged out, shrieking that she loved him, that she was his blood, that he couldn't erase her, and Finn, staring at her with eyes deadened by heartbreak, said quietly, "I already have." A line that silenced her mid-scream, her body going limp as the officers pulled her away, the weight of his rejection breaking her spirit in a way no prison walls could. And as the door slammed behind them, the silence was so deafening it was almost unbearable. Steffi finally pulling Finn into her arms as his body shook with a grief he refused to let surface, whispering into his ear that he had done what he needed to do, that they could move forward now. But Finn pulled back, his voice hoarse as he admitted he didn't know who he was anymore, that he had just turned in his mother and his daughter, that he had become the very thing he swore he never would, a man who chose to destroy his family in order to save himself. And Steffi cupped his face, insisting he had saved their family, that what Lee and Luna had done was unforgivable. But Finn's haunted eyes lingered on the empty doorway, knowing deep down that no matter how justified he was, the image of Lee's betrayed face and Luna's desperate cries would haunt him forever. And the fallout rippled quickly. At the police station, Rich Forrester arrived to check on Steffi and offer his support, though even he admitted he was shaken by Finn's actions. Calling the police on family was something he himself had never been able to do, even with all the betrayals between Brooke and Taylor. And yet he expressed a grudging respect for Finn's strength, while Brooke comforted Steffi, reminding her that she now had a husband who chose her first. A line that made Steffi break into tears because she knew it was true, yet it came at the cost of Finn's soul. Meanwhile, Hope Logan visited the holding cells, shaken by the sight of Luna rocking back and forth on the cold bench, her voice hoarse as she repeated over and over, "He said I'm not his daughter." And Hope, whose compassion often blinded her to danger, felt a pang of sympathy even as she knew Luna had crossed lines beyond repair. And across town, Sheila Carter, who had been watching from the shadows, hearing whispers of what went down, stood outside in the dark, tears of a strange mix of sorrow and vindication streaking her face, whispering to herself that this was exactly what Lee deserved, that this was karma for all. The years Lee had tried to erase her from Finn's life. And yet Sheila's chest also ached for Finn, because despite everything, despite all her sins, she could see the broken little boy inside him, crying for a mother who had never truly loved him. And she vowed in that moment that if Finn could not forgive Lee, perhaps one day he could forgive her, setting the stage for Sheila to attempt yet another redemption arc. While inside the jail, Lee sat in her cell, her composure slowly returning, plotting her next move, whispering to herself that she would never stop fighting for Finn, that he didn't mean it when he said he wouldn't forgive her, that Steffi had poisoned him, that Sheila had manipulated him, and that one day, he would see the truth, while Luna, in the cell beside her, continued to unravel, her screams echoing down the hallway, her nails clawing at the bars, insisting she was Finn's daughter, that she belonged with him, her obsession far from extinguished. And back at the cliff house, Finn sat in the dark, staring at the ocean waves, Steffi by his side but giving him space, as he whispered to himself that he didn't know how to move forward, his entire world destroyed by the very people he trusted most. And Steffi, holding his hand, promised him they would rebuild. But deep down, both of them knew that the shadows of Lee and Luna would linger over their marriage for a long time to come, haunting every smile, every kiss, every moment of peace. Because in soap operas as in life, forgiveness is never final, love is never secure, and the past never truly stays buried, leaving the story wide open for the next explosive twist, the next tragic betrayal, the next haunting return, all of which will test Finn's declaration that he will never forgive his mother, because in the world of the bold and the beautiful, never is a word that rarely holds true. And yet in this moment, in this single devastating night, Finn means it with every shattered piece of his heart. When the squad car doors slammed shut and the flashing lights carried Lee and Luna away from the Forrester estate, Finn's declaration still echoed in his ears like a ghost. "I won't forgive you, Mom." And though the house was finally quiet, the silence felt heavier than any shouting match, pressing on his chest until he struggled to breathe, because even though he had spoken those words with conviction, even though his decision to call the police had been the only option left after years of manipulation, betrayal, and escalating violence, part of him still couldn't believe he had done it. Part of him still felt like the little boy who once clung to Lee's hand in hospital corridors, who once believed she was the only one in the world who truly saw him. And now that illusion had been shattered beyond repair, and Steffi, standing behind him, watched her husband's shoulders heave with silent tremors. Knowing he was trying not to cry, knowing he believed that tears would mean weakness. But she also knew that Finn's silence was worse than any sob, because this silence meant he was burying his pain so deeply it would poison him if he didn't let it out. And so she wrapped her arms around him from behind, whispering that he was not alone, that she was proud of him, that he had chosen his family. But Finn pulled away, his eyes wet, his jaw tight, muttering that he wasn't sure who his family even was anymore, because family wasn't supposed to betray you, wasn't supposed to manipulate you, wasn't supposed to put a gun in your wife's face or cover up crimes in the name of control. And the image of Luna's desperate eyes when she screamed that she was his daughter replayed in his mind over and over, colliding with the sight of Lee's broken mask as the cuffs locked around her wrists, and Finn felt himself spiraling into a place he didn't recognize, a place where every truth he thought he knew was a lie. And though Steffi tried to ground him, the knock at the door jolted them both, Ridge and Brooke arriving to check on their daughter. Ridge pulling Steffi into a hug while eyeing Finn with a mixture of sympathy and unease, because though he respected Finn's strength, he also knew this kind of choice could destroy a man from the inside out, and Brooke, her maternal instincts blazing, took Finn's hand, assuring him he had done the right thing, that protecting his wife and children came before anything else. But Finn barely heard her, his mind already racing to the police station where Lee sat in an interrogation room, her spine straight, her expression controlled again, telling the officers that this was a misunderstanding, that her son was under duress, that Steffi had manipulated him into calling, her voice sharp and convincing, because Lee knew how to weaponize her medical reputation, her status, her authority. But the officers had heard the tremor in Finn's voice when he made the call, had heard the raw pain in his declaration, and they weren't buying her story. Meanwhile, Luna was in another room, her mascara smeared, her hair tangled, rocking back and forth, sobbing that Finn was her father, that she belonged with him. And when Hope Logan, moved by compassion, arrived at the station to check on her, Luna lunged forward, grabbing Hope's hand through the bars, begging her to tell Finn that she wasn't dangerous, that she just wanted love, that she never meant to hurt Steffi. But Hope, though torn, shook her head sadly, telling Luna that actions have consequences, words that made Luna shriek, slamming her hands against the bars until her palms bled, screaming that Finn would come for her, that he would forgive her, because he had to, he was her father. But in reality, Finn sat at home, staring at the ocean waves, whispering to Steffi that he wasn't sure he could forgive himself, let alone them, because calling the police on his own blood made him feel like a traitor, even though he knew it was necessary. And Steffi reminded him that he had done what she once did when she shot Sheila, that sometimes you had to destroy part of yourself to protect the people you loved. And Finn nodded but felt no relief, only a deeper ache. And across town, Sheila herself lurked in the shadows outside the station, her heart pounding with a twisted mixture of sorrow and opportunity, because she had heard Finn's words, had seen the news reports about Lee and Luna being arrested, and though part of her mourned that her grandson Hayes would one day learn his grandmother was a criminal, another part of her thrilled that Lee's downfall meant there was finally a crack in Finn's armor, a space where Sheila could step in, a chance to rewrite her story as the mother who understood him, the only one who would never judge him for his choices. And she whispered to herself that she would bide her time, that when Finn was at his lowest, she would be there, offering forgiveness where Lee offered only control. And Luna, hearing whispers of Sheila's name in the station, perked up like a drowning woman spotting a lifeboat, insisting that Sheila would save her, that Sheila would make Finn see the truth, her obsession twisting tighter with every passing hour. And Lee, hearing her granddaughter's delusions, snapped at her through the wall, telling her to shut up, that Sheila was poison. But Luna only laughed hysterically, claiming Sheila was the only one who really loved her. A declaration that chilled Lee to the bone because it meant Luna was lost, truly lost. And meanwhile, the district attorney began preparing charges. Reckless endangerment, assault with a deadly weapon, obstruction of justice, conspiracy, charges that could destroy both Lee and Luna forever. And when Finn was called to give a statement, he walked into the station with Steffi at his side, his hands trembling as he signed the papers, his voice hollow as he recounted the events that led him here, every word like a knife cutting deeper into his chest. And when Lee was brought out in shackles, she locked eyes with him, her voice steady but her gaze pleading as she said, "You are still my son." And Finn's face hardened as he whispered back, "Not anymore." Words that broke Lee in a way even prison bars could not. And Luna screamed behind them, crying out, "Dad!" as though the single word could undo everything. But Finn didn't turn around, his heart closing like a door sealed shut. And as he left the station, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, microphones shoved in his face, asking how it felt to betray his family. and Finn, his face grim, simply said, "I protected my family," before walking away. Steffi's arm linked with his, but inside, he felt emptier than ever, the waves of guilt, anger, grief, and hollow relief crashing over him like a storm with no end. And as the sun set on Los Angeles, casting long shadows over the city, the stage was set for weeks of fallout. Court hearings where Lee would fight tooth and nail to prove her innocence, Luna's obsession festering into dangerous new levels, Sheila circling like a predator waiting for her chance to swoop in, Steffi clinging to her husband while fearing the scars inside him might never heal, and Finn himself, standing at the crossroads of identity, loyalty, and forgiveness, uncertain if he would ever find peace again, haunted by the truth that in trying to save his family, he may have destroyed the only parts of himself that made him whole.